consequences. This part's going to sound like I grew up in a little log cabin, but I'm telling this for a purpose. I grew up in Maywood, just west of here, and when I was growing up, Oak Park was the hub of the western suburbs. So much of what we did, our shopping, my doctor, the skating rink, YMCA, so many things occurred in Oak Park that were vital to the rest of us in outlying communities. And I always thought of Oak Park that way. It wasn't until the late 60s when I entered my 20s that I started to think about Oak Park a little differently. I remember so much, we were a mixed race community in Maywood, and as kids, always very comfortable with one another. We played together, we worked together, but we didn't live together. It was kind of a separate but equal coexistence that everyone just seemed to accept. When I was 10, I played on a baseball team with Fred Hampton. And you may remember Fred Hampton. He was when he grew up in Maywood, he was very much of a community activist. He was involved in food drives, clothing drives, a lot of positive things. And later on ended tragically in gunfire. While on my team, we were friends. And I remember playing a ball game, leaving after the ball game with Fred, and both of us riding our bikes to my house. And I asked him to come in, and he wouldn't come in. And I urged him to come in. He said, "No, I don't think I should do that." And there was a hesitation, a tension, and it's the way it was. It surprised me, but I understood it. And I have to say that the village of Maywood did not handle increasing demand for housing by minority groups very well. In fact, it did what in those days was the norm, and it dealt with it with white flight and total resegregation. In those days, at 68 to 70, I became interested in a neighborhood organizer named Saul Linsky, who was organizing primarily, or early on, in the back of the yards, and seemed to be somebody who could really generate energy and enthusiasm in people to organize and meet goals. And there was a lot of community organizing going on at the time here. And Oak Park had the temerity to challenge the norm, all right, and had a courageous bunch of people that said it doesn't have to be that way. That minority groups of all kinds can be welcomed into a community without that community losing its diversity without it becoming unstable. And by having a municipal government, unlike our government in Maywood, that was responsive and creative and involved and actually supported the organizing of neighborhood groups, the Village of Oak Park was up here in my estimation. And fast forwarding, because I'm not going to take it minute by minute through my life. Two. Okay. It's my third year of law school, and I'm cruising the law schools, looking at all the bulletin boards, trying to find a job for my senior year in law school. I was at DePaul, which was not my law school, but all those bulletin boards were free to anyone enterprising enough to go into those schools. and I saw the job posted for the village clerk's job in Oak Park. And I desperately wanted that job. You know, every once in a while, something would happen where I was really clear about what I wanted to do. And that job posting was one of those times. And I went after that job. And I contacted the village. And you heard about the ride downtown. That's exactly how it happened. And I saw how he was looking at me. I was nervous. I drove into the post. I scraped the side of the car. It was a bad day. I got that job. I worked at the village as a clerk for a year. I passed the bar. And the time came for us to reorganize one more time, and I came on board as the prosecutor, and Dick moved up to assistant village attorney, and Uncle Art remained our leader. And I remember when he confirmed the fact that I had that job, he said to me, you are very fortunate that the Village of Oak Park has anti-nepotism laws, because my son would have that job. And I did feel lucky. It was an incredible time for me. I felt as though I had hooked on at the top of the mountain, that I was with the town that I wanted to be with, you know, and fighting the causes of that town that I felt as deeply as anyone here, or fairly deeply anyway. Art Thorpe was just a figure on high. He was Mr. Illinois Municipal Law at the time. It was an incredible experience to work for him. I remember that the precursor to the Wednesday Journal in those days sent a photographer to the village hall to take a picture of the new law department. So that morning, I got up, and I had been, after being hired and taking my employee physical, I was diagnosed with mono, and I had a real fever cooking. And it was the morning of that photograph, and I called Village Hall, and a woman answered the phone, and she said, yes, is this Ray Heiss? She recognized my voice. She was one of the secretaries. I said, yes. Is Art Thorpe there? She said, yeah, I saw him walking by. I said, could you tell him that I've got mono and that I'm running a fever, and I don't think I can make it for that photograph? She said, okay. And And she was gone forever. It had to be 10 minutes. And she came back to the phone, and she was hesitant when she was talking to me. And she said, Mr. Thorpe told me to tell you that one way or the other, they were taking the picture of the entire law department. And I got dressed. And I was at Village Hall in 5 minutes. And that's that picture that's out in the hall. In terms of setting the stage for how it all started, I think I've done that. And what I'd like to do is not talk about what we accomplished in those subsequent 35 years, but to rather tell you what I learned about Oak Park, the characteristics of Oak Park and its citizens that I think go a long way toward defining it. These are not often talked about things, but I think they're very real, and I think have been alluded to some degree this evening by other speakers. The first characteristic is that I don't find many Oak Parkers who focus on what we have done or what we have accomplished. I find that people are much more interested in what we aspire to do and what we aspire to be. That people in Oak Park understand that it's really in the struggle, and that's the important thing in terms of keeping your eye on the ball. That what we have attained, we cannot keep unless we struggle to keep it. And in the village, I think it explains a great deal about why the pot seems to be always boiling. The fact that if there's ever an apparent lull in activity, someone's got a cause, someone's got an issue to fill that void. And I think that this unique, and some perceive it as crazy, town hall government style that we've always had. I mean, it just doesn't change. It's the way Oak Park does business. I think that that style nurtures the change, nurtures the expression of opinions, provides opportunity for people to express opinions. I go to home rule attorney meetings and I listen to home rule attorneys from other communities complain about the length of hearings, complain about variation hearings, complain about special use permit hearings. And when they're complaining, they're talking about meetings that are longer than 3 hours. I think the standing record here is still the Oak Park Hospital Medical Office Building hearing process, which was approximately 57 hours in length. Now, some people would call that crazy. I don't. And I have to say that the proof is in the results, and it's hard to argue with. I think that decision-making in this community has always been a collaborative effort for the good of the community. I certainly know that on the best legislation I've ever been involved in drafting, there's always a citizen board or commission. And in this town, you can find somebody with expertise on just about anything. And it is that kind of collaboration that has really produced an awful lot in terms of effective change here. The other characteristic that I want to mention, and I think Oak Parkers inherently understand this, that there's a flip side to the rights that we so jealously guard on behalf of our citizens. And that flip side is respect for the rule of law. I think that it is the underpinning and the driving force for just about every major accomplishment Oak Park has ever succeeded in. I think that if you were to ask the average Oak Parker about fair housing and our efforts to provide fair housing and our efforts in opposition to any form of discrimination based on sexual orientation, I don't think that you find most Oak Parkers would regard that as something other than what every government, local government, state government in this country is obligated by law to do. That we should not be special. We should be the norm. And in that, there is a challenge that I think is felt by other communities, and I think it has influenced the change. As David said, maybe a little differently, change far beyond our 4.5 square miles of real estate. And that is, to me, one of the strengths of this community. David mentioned The Greatest Generation, and that book by Tom Brokaw was referring to my parents' generation, the World War II generation. The book referred to those people as heroes, and then expressed that that generation didn't see themselves as heroes at all. They saw themselves as people who did what they believed they were required to do under the circumstances. And I believe in that respect, Oak Park shares that in common with that generation. We do what all people should be expected to do, and that is treat all citizens, everyone, with equality. It's not a difficult concept, but it certainly is one that seems to be difficult to get for a lot of people. I understand that a former governor was convicted the other day. 17 out of 20 counts in a criminal complaint. And I have to say that those counts all related to the issue of respect for the rule of law. The convictions on 17 of those counts, I think, will be greeted with great consternation by many quarters in the state of Illinois, but not here. I think that when a citizen of Oak Park walks into the village hall through those doors with the expectation that they're entitled to receive a permit or receive a license, if in fact they're qualified to do so, that they'll find that expectation fulfilled at the other end. I wanted to, and this part I have to read because it's a letter from, it's actually a speech. I want to mention this first too. There are two important people in the village's past that have something to say on this topic. And the first is my first village manager, Lee Ellis. In the late 70s, we were involved in a project that involved amending various key provisions in the village code, and we were dealing with the village manager's article in Chapter 2 of the Village Code on Administration. And it was my job to interview village manager Lee Ellis on his perceptions of the job of village manager in the village of Oak Park. And the first question I asked him out of the box was what he believed his authority to be as a village manager. And he responded to me that he had no authority. He only had a great deal of responsibility. And as long as he thought about it in that way, he would never get in trouble. And that impressed me. And it was really another way of saying, as long as you have respect for the rule of law, you'll be fine. And I haven't found the quote in this pile of paper, but I know it well enough to fly with it. First board meeting, it's January or February in 1902. The village had just fended off an effort by the city of Chicago to have Oak Park join to it. And Oak Park had formed as an independent village. And in his opening remarks that evening, village president Alan Ray said that there was an expectation on the part of the citizens of this new village to form what he called an ideal government. And he referred to it as a government that would rule with impartiality and a government that would defend the rights of its citizens as though they were their own rights. And their job that evening was to begin to build the foundation for that government. That's 109 years ago. And I think if Alan Ray could see the Village of Oak Park in 2011, he'd be pleased with where his village has gone. I want to, I have to say that when I came to the village, there was an incredible village board. The manager and the board at that time fought tooth and nail on issues, and good things came of it. The staff was an amazing staff. The big three for me were Glenn Sunday in Public Works, Dean Porter as Finance Director, and Bill Reichert as Police Chief. Those three people were like stepdads to me and taught me a great deal about municipal government and how things operate in each of those divisions. We also had the Housing Center, which was young, but very directed and very determined. We had formed the Housing Authority. Pat Lukansky was part of that process many years ago. All of the partner agencies that existed at that time were all very determined groups and very effective groups. And last but not least, and I want to say this about the quality of the staff and the things that they were responsible for was just, it was enormous. But the backbone of this community, I think, then and now, is the boards and commissions. The opportunity to tap into the talent that's available here and the enthusiasm and desire to participate. And the one thing I forgot to mention that Alan Ray said was a necessary ingredient to accomplish that ideal government was the absolute effort of every citizen in the Village of Oak Park. And I think the board and commission process, which is a process or a cluster of boards and commissions that probably would fit in a normal community of over 200,000, is something that we have layered over our community of 52,000. And if we're wanting in any way, it could be our ability to support those very active and dynamic boards and commissions to the nth degree to satisfy their needs. There are only so many of us, and we are shrinking. And I think for a community of that has 370 to 75 employees, to have a board and commission process that is close to 300 people, 250, 300 people, is amazing. And those people have always produced good work. That was 1975, and this is 2011, and I have to tell you, and I don't blow smoke. If I believe it, I'll say it, and I do. This board is a truly fine board of trustees. The people that you have working in the village, the department heads, the assistants, are so qualified, so dedicated. We had a session just right around the election where we all sat in a circle and Ray remembers this, it was all of the candidates, and it was to inform them about what we do. Well, I have to say, it was shocking to me and gratifying to go around that room and listen to all of the programs and services that this small number of people provide in this community. The board and commission process is alive and well and changing. Commissions are eliminated, new ones form as needs arise. Much of the formation work is done by enthusiastic residents with ideas. And that board and commission process is really the farm club for the village board here. And I think it's been a very healthy process in that regard. So while it's tough to step back from the battle, and it really is, it's hard for me to do it, just to take the step back. I can tell you, I feel very good about the village and the people that are in place to carry on here. I don't think we've had a more quality group than we've got today. With that, I would like to, and I'd like to talk about everybody in this room, and I've got something to say about everybody. But I won't. What I want to say is that I had the pleasure of working with a wonderful little crew in the village's law department for these last 35 years. There weren't many of us, even over that 35-year time, but all of them were dedicated people, and I'd like to acknowledge them. First, I'd like to mention my compadre, Dick Martins, who has been ably counseling the Fire and Police Commission, the Plan Commission, and Zoning Board for my whole tenure plus 2. My first assistant, and also out of that wonderful CETA program, Bruno Graziano. Bruno fought through a lot of difficult days with the National Rifle Association during his tenure. We took some beatings and we gave some beatings, and it was an interesting time. And Bruno was kind of an even rudder through it all, and I loved having him around. The second assistant was Jack Tibbetts. Is Jack? I got a friend named Art Lang, who is a teacher, and an understandable teacher, and a good teacher for me. Taught me math. All right, no one else could do that. Art did that. And I remember sitting in the interview with Jack and saying, "Dan, you remind me of Art Lang." And he had that teaching ability, and he taught so many people and supported so many people over 17 years. When Jack came to the village, he was a bachelor who fixed his own car, living in a cold water flat with beanbag chairs and a folding table, and he left with an Arlington Heights home and picket fence, 2 kids and a dog. It made a lot of change in his life. And next, and I have a little different version of the interview. It was Alex, and Alex was a jack of all trades. He handled so many different things that went so far beyond his job description and did them well, amongst which was being the master of ceremonies for the village's dinner dance 4 months after he got to the village. I'm sitting out in the audience, they hand him the microphone, and he starts into his routine, and people are going, who the hell is that? And his opening line was, "Hi, I'm Alex Alexandru. My parents were comedians." And Alex moved on to Aurora and was replaced by Simone. Simone is kind of a Scottish warrior. She doesn't give quarter. She hangs in there. She has a good Oak Park sense of values, and we need to give her all the support we can at a time when there's so much to learn, so much to download, and so few people to handle it. But she's another one that has been, and will be a dedicated employee of the village. And going back in time to Rosemary Shaw, who was such a lady, and we were flying by the seat of our pants. We were negotiating parking ticket settlements when there was just nobody else around to do it. Rosemary referred to them as customers. Treated everyone kindly. When she'd get very focused, she'd count in Austrian. And I knew she was on her mark when she started doing that. Please stand up. Finally, we got a secretary slot in the law department. Oh my God. And we ended up with a great candidate, and that was Kathy Cannon. And we also spent whole nights together. And I would drop her off at 6 o'clock in the morning. Say, "Good night, Kat. Good night, Ray." Neighbors are bringing the milk and newspaper off the porch. And I remember actually one night where night turned into day, and we left Village Hall at maybe 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And this one was an imposed deadline on the historic preservation ordinance. And I didn't realize how bad I looked until I got to Bob Sherrill's door, because I went around and dropped off packets to each of the trustees. And Sherrill invited me in and asked me to sit down and asked me if I was okay. Kathy and I, unfortunately for her, it was when I still had the juice to do that, she was a good enough sport to stick with me. And it brings us up to our current crew. You know, the great little crew it is. Nanette Kennedy is my radar Riley, who fills so many different slots, but is primarily responsible for managing claims, the workers' comp claims, the risk management detail, the record keeping, the claims where we're chasing people for knocking down stoplights, or they're chasing us for damaging their car. And in her little world, Nanette catches it all. and I have to say, in great detail. And I don't believe she could stick around this late, but please give her a The same is true of Karen. Karen Blackwaller, who also had to leave because I believe she was driving Annette. Karen has just been a great employee with just a great attitude, always wanting to help, and boy, keeping me going in a straight direction right up through today. Because I didn't finish this till 5 minutes to 5 this afternoon. I'm glad I didn't have to read it because it's got all kinds of typos in it. You know, briefly, and I think it's important for the village to realize that there's another element to this machine that we have that makes it work, and that is the consulting attorneys who possess the expertise in each of their critical fields that we couldn't possibly staff for internally. Each of the people that represent the village are of the highest caliber in their respective fields, and they all charge for their services beyond reasonable rates for the benefit of the village, and I cannot express my gratitude to them enough. Many of them are here tonight. John Murphy, Dennis Walsh, Lance Molina, and several others, Richard Friedman, all handling various aspects of village work when it exceeds our ability physically to do it, and exceeds our ability in terms of expertise. We take it out as far as we can, and we have the sense to know when to hand it off to the experts. And these people have produced for the village year after year, and done so to the incredible benefit of the village. And please, and this is pretty much it. I want people to know that my gratitude to this town for letting me serve it in the capacity of village attorney for all these years is just unmeasurable. It has fit my life. It has been the best job I could ever have. If I had the opportunity to choose a job, any job, it would have been this one. And I've never looked at a clock in 36 years, I have to tell you. And wherever I go and whatever I do, I will always be proud to call myself an Oak Parker. And I will always be watching to make sure no one messes with my town.